Why do people fall in love with you? It might seem like a mystery, an invisible spark, a twist of fate, or pure chemistry. But what if there's a deeper, more profound reason, rooted not in your looks, your charm, or even your personality, but in something far older, far more psychological? Carl Jung, one of the great pioneers of modern psychology, believed that love is never random. It doesn't just happen. When someone feels a magnetic pull toward you, it's not simply because of who you are on the outside, but because of what you awaken inside them. You see, people don't fall in love with you, not at first. They fall in love with what they see in you, an image, a reflection, a forgotten part of themselves. To Jung, this is projection, the unconscious act of placing our own hidden desires, unmet needs, and lost identities onto someone else. And when you mirror what someone has repressed or longed for, you become irresistible, without even trying. But there's more. Jung believed that within each of us lives an inner figure, a hidden image of the opposite gender, shaped by early life experiences and the collective unconscious. These inner archetypes, the anima and the animus, are emotional blueprints we unknowingly search for in others. When you embody someone's inner figure, the connection feels overwhelming, as if they've known you forever. That isn't fate, it's familiarity from within. So, why do people fall in love with you? Because you either reflect a part of themselves they've forgotten, or you represent a piece of them that's still missing. In this video, we'll explore these two profound reasons through Jung's lens and uncover the psychological forces behind romantic attraction. This is not a surface-level look at dating or desire. It's a journey into the unconscious mind and how love becomes a mirror, revealing who we are, who we were, and who we're becoming. 1. Why people are drawn to you. The hidden mirror of the psyche. Have you ever felt an intense connection with someone who barely knows you? Someone who seems captivated by your presence, as if they've known you forever, even if you've just met. It might feel magical, destined, like something out of a dream. But according to Carl Jung, it's not magic, it's psychology, and more specifically, projection. Jung believed that the people we fall for aren't always about who they are, but what they represent to us, deep in our unconscious. And the same goes for why others fall in love with us. It's not always because of our smile, charm, or kindness. Often, it's because we unconsciously awaken something inside them, something unresolved, missing, or long forgotten. Every person carries within them an invisible map of emotions, memories, and psychological patterns shaped by childhood, culture, and past relationships. Buried in that map are fragments of who they used to be, who they want to become, or what they never allowed themselves to feel. And when you show up in their life, you may unknowingly reflect one of those pieces, so clearly that it feels impossible to ignore. It's not necessarily you they fall for, it's the version of themselves they see through you. For example, someone who grew up feeling emotionally suppressed may find themselves irresistibly drawn to someone who is warm, expressive, and unafraid of vulnerability. Not because they simply admire that quality, but because it reflects a side of them that was never allowed to exist. A dormant part of their soul awakens when they see it alive in you. This type of attraction isn't superficial. It runs deep, it bypasses logic and moves straight into emotion. You become a living mirror for what they crave, need, or long to heal. And that's why it feels so intense. It's not about romance alone, it's about psychological completion. But here's where it gets complicated. If someone is unaware of their projections, they may place unrealistic expectations on you. They might unconsciously expect you to play a role, one that fits their inner story. And when you act outside of that script, when you reveal your full, human self, It can trigger disappointment or confusion. Suddenly, the magical connection feels shaky, not because you changed, but because the fantasy they built around you has started to fade. Understanding this helps you step out of the illusion. You begin to realize that being loved intensely isn't always about being seen clearly. It might mean you're being cast in a story that isn't yours to carry. Jung didn't see this as a failure, though. He saw it as a doorway. Because every time someone projects something onto you, it tells you what they're missing, what they're searching for. And when you feel a sudden emotional pull towards someone, it tells you something too. Real love doesn't demand perfection. It doesn't cling to illusion. It sees, accepts, and grows. But to get there, both people have to become aware of the mirrors they're looking into. So the next time someone seems deeply drawn to you, ask, is it really me they see, or the part of themselves they've been waiting to meet? 2. You represent what they've repressed or never developed. Sometimes someone is drawn to you not because of what you do, but because of what you awaken in them. You may unknowingly carry a quality they've buried for years. Maybe it's your confidence, your emotional openness, your creativity. Whatever it is, you become a mirror for something they've lost, feared, or never allowed themselves to express. Carl Jung called this phenomenon projection. According to him, we all carry unexpressed parts of ourselves, our shadow, in the unconscious. These parts don't disappear. Instead, they show up in the people we admire, fear, or fall for. So when someone falls in love with you, it might be because you embody something they've long needed to develop within themselves. This attraction can feel powerful, almost fated, but it's also fragile, because it's not really about you. It's about what you represent. The danger is that they may idealize you, expect you to always reflect that part of them, and feel disappointed the moment your humanness breaks the fantasy. What starts as admiration can quietly become dependency. They might rely on your energy, your strength, your calm, not because they love you fully, but because they feel incomplete without what you bring. Over time, the relationship becomes unbalanced. You carry not just yourself, but their unmet needs too. And when you can no longer meet those silent expectations, when you show your imperfections, they may pull away. Not because you failed, but because their illusion cracked. Jung warned that unless we recognize projection for what it is, love can quickly become a mirror for unresolved longing rather than genuine connection. So if someone is drawn to you intensely and suddenly, ask yourself gently, do they see me or a version of themselves they haven't yet embraced? Because real love begins when both people are seen, not as symbols, but as souls. 3. You awaken their inner archetype, not their conscious choice. Sometimes love doesn't begin with logic, it begins with recognition, not of your personality or your traits, but something deeper, older. Carl Jung believed that each of us carries an unconscious image of the opposite gender. Men have an inner anima, the feminine, and women carry an animus, the masculine. These aren't preferences, they're archetypes, emotional blueprints formed through childhood experiences, cultural symbolism, and universal mythology. So when someone falls in love with you, it might not be because of who you are, but because you match this inner image they've carried their entire life. This is why, sometimes, love feels instant, familiar, like you've known each other forever. It's not about shared experiences, it's about inner recognition. You don't just meet them, you activate something in them, and that can be both beautiful and dangerous. Because when someone is in love with an archetype, they're not seeing you, they're seeing a symbolic version of you, an ideal that lives in their unconscious mind. You become the vessel for a dream, a script, a long-standing emotional pattern. And as long as you align with that pattern, the connection feels magical. But what happens when your reality no longer fits their projection? What happens when your voice, your needs, or your flaws show up? The fantasy begins to break. This is why relationships built on archetypal projection often begin with intensity and end in confusion. Because the person wasn't truly in love with you. They were in love with who you represented to them. Jung warned, if we're not aware of these projections, we'll keep falling in love with symbols instead of people. We'll keep chasing inner figures through outer relationships, hoping someone else will complete what's actually missing within. But true love requires more than reflection. It requires reality. So, if someone is drawn to you powerfully and suddenly, don't just ask what they like about you. Ask what you've awakened in them and whether they're loving you or the story you represent in their inner world. Love, when seen through the lens of Jung, isn't just about chemistry. It's about reflection. We don't fall for people randomly. We fall for those who awaken something buried deep within us. But true connection begins when we stop chasing projections and start embracing reality. So the next time someone is drawn to you or you to them, pause. Ask not just why them, but what part of me do they reflect? That question might change the way you love forever. If this resonated with you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Mindful Sphere, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your story could help someone else find clarity too.